So if you rewind the tape back to 2011, my news outlet proposed privatizing the United States Postal Service. Now, did lawmakers in Washington, D.C. listen? That obviously no, they did not, because over the last 11 years, the USPS has rung up $70 billion in new debt. $70 billion. And again, I've always thought that government shouldn't compete in the private sector. It sure as hell shouldn't compete in the private sector when it's losing money like that. So this year, Republicans and Democrats in Washington have gotten together, and they're pushing what's called the Postal Reform Act of 2020. Now, this bill purports to fix the postal system and would ostensibly stop the bleeding of these billions of dollars year over year. Now, here's the problem. Every time you hear the word reform coming out of Washington, D.C., you should probably be a little worried because chances are it's not what it seems. Things are never what they seem coming out of the Beltway. But here's the problem with this bill. Number one, it doesn't do anything to reform the Postal Service. It does save some money, but the way it saves money is by taking a big chunk of the debt of the Postal Service, $5.6 billion to be precise, and simply transferring it to the Medicare Trust Fund, which is scheduled to be insolvent in 2026. So basically, you're taking money from one bankrupt government trust fund and putting it into another. And again, we're calling that reform. We're calling that fixing a problem. No, all it is transferring debt. Your kids, your grandkids are still going to have to pay for this ongoing lack of competitiveness. Now, if that were all the bill did, it would be bad enough. But it's actually worse than that. It's not just kicking the can down the road and, again, moving debt from one pile to another. This bill is actually worse than that. What it does, in addition to that, is it prevents the Postal Service from making any of the reforms that it needs to make if it is going to try to be competitive in the marketplace, which, again, is something I don't think it should be doing in the first place. But if we're going to continue to fund this thing, why not allow it to operate with a little more flexibility, a little more agility? A lot of folks don't know this. I was researching this morning and found the statistic that absolutely shocked me. And the statistic is 230,000. 230,000. I want you to think about that for just a second. That is the number of vehicles currently maintained by the United States Postal Service. 230,000. That's nearly 250,000 vehicles, people. Why do they need so many? Well, it's simple, because they have a mandate to serve. They have a mandate in certain areas of the country, rural areas, to have post offices, to keep post offices open. And again, it's a mandate that keeps the Postal Service from being able to compete with the private sector. But again, it's actually worse than that. What we've got with these mandates is they force the Postal Service out of areas where they could be competitive, ceding that ground to companies like Amazon. And not surprisingly, Amazon, which, by the way, gets discounted rates from the Postal Service, which get passed on to you, me, and small businesses and other businesses, this helps them. This helps cement that competitive advantage that they have over their competitors. And again, is that fair? Is that good for competition? Is that good for the economy? I don't think so. What's the solution? Again, it's not complicated. It's what I said over a decade ago, in fact. Get government out of the business. Don't reform the Postal Service. Privatize it. Again, mail has gone down, first-class mail has gone down by 49% over the last 12 years. That is a huge decrease, folks. 60% of the mail that you get at your house is spam, essentially spam, the stuff you click off of on the internet. Should we continue subsidizing that? Should we continue spending billions of dollars to subsidize that? I don't think so. Now, this issue is going to be increasingly prevalent as South Carolina's starring role in the South presidential preference primary begins to take shape. So we're going to keep an eye on this issue in the weeks and months ahead as presidential candidates come to South Carolina, start having to answer the big issues of the day. And folks, at $70 billion of loss over the last 11 years, trust me, this is a big issue. So look for more on it on FITSNews.